Well, how do you do, Buckaroos? This is Joe Layton of Cowboys and Indians magazine, and I am very happy today to have a guest zooming in all the way from Australia, the multi-talented multitasker, Leah Purcell, who is the writer, director, and star of The Legend of Molly Johnson, an extraordinarily powerful Outback Western that is opening in theaters and drive-ins and streaming platforms everywhere, August 19th. And Leah, I'm really happy it's finally opening because I've been talking to everybody I know about this movie since it opened it when premiered at South by Southwest last year. And people were beginning to think I only dreamed this movie.
Bless. Yes, I'm the same. Thank goodness it's finally over there. I've got a few fans in America through Wentworth, a show here. So, and they're going, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? So I can now, I finally gave them the date of the 19th of August. And I said, so don't wait around, get out there and see it. So yeah, no, it's exciting.
Like I say, it is a powerful film. Now, it's based on a classic short story, The Drover's Wife by Henry Lawson, who is a prestigious, famed, everybody in school has to read him once or twice during their school days, author in Australia. But you've done some twists. You've added, you've expanded, and not just for this film. You started out with a play, and then a
Mhm.
novel,
Yeah.
and now this terrific film. What was there about this story that captured your fancy in the first place, and why did you want it to be the story of a woman who isn't even named in the
Mm.
original story?
Yeah, well, it was a story that my mum would read to me when I was a little girl, or she'd recite it to me. And she had Henry Lawson's book of short stories, and I guess Henry Lawson is probably your equivalent to your Mark Twain.
Mhm.
Henry was considered one of the country's greatest, as they say, short story author of fiction and poetry. Was also that he wrote as well, um, and I think, and I was 5 years old, and it was the first story where I used my imagination, and I could see myself and my mother in that story because our life was kind of similar. My mum's Aboriginal and my dad's white, and my white dad wasn't around in my upbringing, so it was just me and my mum. We lived in the last street in a small country town. Um, we had a wood heap. She could swing an axe. She taught me how to split logs to chips, and she would say to me, "Don't pack the wood heap hollow, or snakes will get in under." And those sort of words were what was written in Henry Lawson's story. So my little brain was just putting them all together. It was just something that I hung on to, and I'd always say to her, "Mum, can you tell me that story?" Um, and I did that for 42 years until one day I said, I think it's time to do something with that story. I always carried the one thing that I took after my mum had passed away was that little book. And I said, I'm going to do something with this one day. And look, I believe it was a gift from my mother. I'm a spiritual woman. That story just flowed out of me. But I wanted to do, there's a couple of reasons why I chose Henry Lawson's Drive. When I put my producer's hat on, I know that there was going to be an audience in Australia for it because it's considered a classic here in Australia. There's a wide audience, and a lot of people know it. It's studied, back again on the school curriculum, um, and I just knew that I could get bums on seats, as they say. Um, it started out as a play, then I started to write the film, and then I sort of did the novel as well. Came through, and I just knew I was onto something. But I also wanted to be the truth teller as an Indigenous person, and I guess use the Drover's Wife, Henry Lawson's title, as a Trojan horse, where I can actually people to come in thinking that they might be getting a literal interpretation of that story, and so far that it's been nice surprises of the twists, the reimagining. We call it a reimagining from an Indigenous woman's perspective, from a woman's perspective. Henry didn't give her a name, although someone did remind me he didn't give the drover a name either. I said, yeah, but he had a bit more of a personal title. And so I said, so I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to see what life was like. I fictionalized it in Henry's story. The husband is a guy that is trying his best, but hey, you need a bad guy in your film. He became the antagonist. So, you know, and it was fun to then also put my family story in all of my writing. At the moment, as I said, being a truth teller for Indigenous issues, I loosely base this as taking some of my family stories and placing it in as a foundation. And that foundation gives me strength and courage. And then it allows, and then I go into dramatizing things. So there is a character in the film, and that is loosely based on my great-grandfather's stories.
Now, this is the escaped convict.
Yeah, Yarika, right? The Indigenous man, yes.
Right.
And so I put some of my grandfather's stories in there. And a lot of people said, oh, is that the fiction? And I said, no, that's actually the truth. So, you know, without giving anything away for the American viewers. So they would go, oh, wow. And they said, gosh, I want to come back and watch it again and have that understanding and see, you know, and just experience that. So it's been a lot of great feedback in Australia of loving this, you know, the subtext, what's underneath it, and that truth telling. And for me as an artist, I want people to sit with my film, and I want discussion to be had. You know, in some of my writings, it's deliberately left open so that you as the audience can discuss it and come up with your own answer to that. There's no right or wrong. It's your perception of it. But that if it was a negative one, through that story, you know, I might have changed your viewpoint on a few of Indigenous issues. And that's important for me. And I went to see it. We're in our 14th week in Australia.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. And I went to see it last weekend, and we had to sit right up the front because the theatre, it was a small theatre, but it was full, and everyone stayed to the end of the credits and was still sitting there. And the lady that comes and cleans the popcorn up had to tell us out. You know, and I just sat there listening, and the conversations that were happening. So that's great that people, it's doing exactly what I wanted to do. It's to shine a light on Indigenous issues, women's issues, and bring about discussion in the theatre. So I'm happy, and I hope it does that for America as well, and giving the American people a look into our colonial past, Indigenous issues, as with your people's Indigenous issues, you know, over there, putting a light on those hardships and what was wrongfully done.
Well, now Molly is a loving mother. She is a very resourceful woman, and she's pretty much a badass. I mean, you know, she's several months pregnant, and yet she can pick up the shotgun and tell somebody, you know, you mess with me, and I'm gonna kill you where you stand and bury you where you fall, and you believe it. You know, you have no trouble believing it. And someone, the escaped convict, appears on her property, and you think the story is going to go one way, the traditional way, and it doesn't. And again, like you said, you don't want to give too much away, but
No.
he not only reveals a lot about himself, but he forces Molly to accept some things about herself. And but there's also a suspense element. There is also, at the end of the film, a sort of magical realism element, if I dare say so. You cover a lot of ground in this, and you cover it very impressively.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, look, I've been 30 years in the industry here in Australia, and I just wanted to get it right. I just wanted to work hard on it. I know that when I go to the cinema, I want to be stimulated emotionally and intellectually. And I just really wanted to, and this is a passion project for me. It's a story close to my heart for many reasons. And I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to look after my audience as well, with the magical realism at the end and that, and the wanting of hope. It's there's a few hard things, storylines in there that are pretty full on. But I wanted to give my audience hope, especially in Australia. Like, it's a little bit different over here because they're not big fans of violence. And we know the American, well, someone said the American audience, they don't mind their violence, as long as it's justified. And this violence is. I didn't put it in there just for shock value. It's exactly what happened in those times, and in some circumstances still happening today. And it was important for me to give a rich texture of ensemble story writing, because someone said she'd done I've enjoyed all the story lines. And as an artist, that's what I wanted people to make sure that they could see the various subtext in the storylines, that it's an ensemble piece. I do write ensemble things. And I'm, thank you for saying what you said. And I believe that I worked so hard. I didn't leave anything unturned. I worked that edit. I worked that script. I was working hard with all the actors. I let them have a voice, because I think you can only, it can only advance what I had as a basis. Every now and then you might get some actor that wants to run off on a totally different tangent, but majority.
That's when you pick up the shotgun and
yeah, no, pull up, yeah. But it was a joy to her, the strength in her. And I had a lot of women that were that women of the land, in that area we shot in. It was a land of farming land, and the women would say, you got that right, the hardship and what we have to do as women. And we were fighting massive fires. We literally got out of that area, and we had within 8 days, and a massive fire front came through, and and a person that was writing for the local paper, a person said that was writing for the local paper, said that the women are doing a Molly Johnson. They are staying back, and they are having to, while their husbands are out fighting the fires and trying to save their livestock, these women are making those tough decisions. Do I stay and help, or do I take the kids and the pets and find a way out of here? And, so they really appreciated showing the toughness and the strength and the beauty of these women. And I also wanted to make sure that Molly's character, because, you get a lot of Australian films and Westerns, and the land's the hardship, and, it's almost an antagonist element of it, and I wanted to show that Molly was actually at home. Yes, of course, living on a land isolated is tough, but, when she walks through that valley, and she's at her most relaxed and beautiful, it's like Mother Nature is giving her a hug, the strength, the determination, to the calm before the storm, as they say, that the wild ride that she has to go on. And she becomes a badass, I got to say it with the American accent, because she has to. It's survival. She's got to do what she's got to do to protect her children. And any mother, whether it's urban, bush, high country, city, they will do that. They will do that.
Well, one of the other things I liked about the film very much, I mean, you have a few characters in the film. I mean, let's face it, they're going to go straight to hell when they die.
Yeah.
They're bad people. But there are other characters that, a lesser filmmaker, a lesser storyteller would have turned into straight out villains. And you've got, the new lawman in the area and his wife, and they mean well. They have their story to tell. They have their reasons. And you play fair, but you also bring up the fact that they'll never know. I mean, they may have empathy, they may have sympathy, but they're really never going to know.
No, and that was, I guess, was my shining the light back on where we are as a nation in Australia with the relationships between Aboriginal people and non-Indigenous people. And it was to say that we understand and accept, you know, the empathy, the sympathy, the help, but you'll never know. And unless we talk about our experiences and share those histories, share through truth telling and share the brutality of it, can we sort of move forward? It was, you know, it was paying homage to that. It was also paying homage to, I guess, people, the non-Indigenous people that have helped me through my career, you know, as well, that there are people with good hearts, but they will never know. And I love that scene between Louisa and Molly. I won't say where because it gives it away.
Yes.
But there's a beautiful moment between them where it's women on women, and they're having this deep discussion, and Louisa gets it, and she realizes what she needs to do. And that's what and it's about listening. And that's a big thing in this country. You know, we're still not considered in the constitution of this country. And it's about us as Indigenous people having a voice. And for those that for the past 200 odd years have tried, some genuinely, others just out of, you know, that was their job to do, people to listen, and then we all act together to make those changes. So, you know, that was the undercurrent of the reasons of Nate. And then you had Nate Klintoff, who is the sergeant, the new lawman that comes to town, and he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He understands what's happened, but he's there to uphold the law, and he's got to do what he's got to do.
Now, another thing, this may seem like a small thing, but, you know, for years and years, every time I've talked to somebody who's been in a Western, you know, acted in a Western, directed a Western, they talk about, you know, actors who, shall we say, embellish their writing ability. You know, they're, you know, oh yeah, I was born on the back of the horse. And then the first day of shooting, they fall off the horse or something like that. And, you know, I get letters, emails from people, oh, that actor in this movie or that TV show didn't look comfortable on a horse. And again, without wanting to give too much away, there is a deputy, shall we say, in this movie who really hates to ride horses. And I don't know. I don't know. I may be the only person in the theater who'd start laughing out loud at that, but it's like, it's just a nice little touch. It's like that was another way you were going against the cliches, the conventions.
Yeah. Look, we wanted to have fun, and you know, and it's true that not everyone that's from the bush can, you know, lasso a steer or jump on the back of a horse as willingly. And you know, look, we even did a take where he actually got off the horse the wrong way and had to slide, you know, but it was just too funny because he's a very good actor and his comedic timing is unbelievable. And I went, look, that might be pushing it just one little bit too far, but you you know, and yes, I wanted to break the stereotype. Yes, I was paying homage to the original or Western style in various shots. Like there was, like when you see the Stockman, there's literally where we watched The Good, the Bad, the Ugly and went, I want that brain. You know what I mean? And they were deliberate. And so was the deliberate action of just swinging the pendulum the other way. And what do you get out of this? And you know, because of the hard stuff and the darker stuff within the film, I wanted there to be those light moments, and people have been laughing, which is great. When I go to the cinema, I go, are they going to get the laughs? And they do. And that's really important as well, I think, because they balance it out, and then you've got this real you've had this real experience in the theater of light and shade, and you know, sitting back and being affected emotionally, and then having a little chuckle as well, which I think is a good thing. It's a balance.
Well, particularly in something as heavily dramatic, you know, and powerful as this, you know, a good laugh is appreciated now and then, I have to say. But
yeah, and I was aware of that, and I was deliberate. I wanted to give my audience a rest. That's those big time lapses in it is there as a breath. Breathe with the land, because we got another You know, it's like being locked into the roller coaster at a fun park, and away you go. And you know, so I was conscious, and that just comes from me being a theatre performer. And I am an actor that I do go after my audience. You know, my fourth wall is way beyond, and I chase my audience, and I want them to feel what I'm feeling. So I was very aware in the edit of when they needed to rest and when they're ready to go, and when I was going to give them a backhander of emotion, you know, and set them on another path. And it was important to find that hope at the end of the film as well. People needed that, but also psychologically, that's when I totally broke them as well, because there was that hope. And when I'd get people like that, that was the one time I did give myself a pat on the back. I said, yeah, exactly where I needed you to do that.
Well, you deserve several pats on the back, and dare I say it, you deserve some serious awards consideration
Bless you,
for
Joe. Thank you.
all of your labors on this film, particularly this powerful performance. Thank you, Leah. I wish you nothing but the best, and I look forward to seeing you play another badass real soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your kind words. Much
Take care
appreciated.
now.